Hi, welcome to the Way of the Rose live video. Hi, welcome to the Way of the Rose live video. Today we are on part 4 of Initiation into Mystery. We're going to be talking about the presentation today, unpacking it a little bit, looking at it, but also talking about how you can work with the mysteries in your own rosary and why you might want to. The 4th mysteries of every circle, there are 5 mysteries in every circle, 5 joyous mysteries, 5 sorrowful mysteries, 5 glorious mysteries. And I always find the 4th mysteries of every circle very rich with very interesting things going on. They tend to have a lot going on in them. They kind of drop down into the other mysteries. There's a lot of back and forth. And today we're going to look at the presentation very carefully. It's a very complicated, interesting mystery.
Yeah, it's a complicated moment just for those who may not know what it actually is or what it involves. After, I believe it's 12 days. Oops, sorry.
We come meet our kitty.
You
Wait
can
a
meet
minute.
our kitty. One of our kitties. This is our oldest kitty.
This is our oldest kitty, Fujiyama.
So
She's very fierce, very sweet. She's 19 years old and amazing.
And she likes to be the star of every video.
So we're going to start over.
Okay.
Why don't we start with, we'll read the mystery. Clark's going to read what we wrote about the mystery in the book.
Which is just a thumbnail sketch, and we'll unpack it a little bit. Mary presents her child to the greater community. On her way into the temple, she encounters 2 ancient seers who recognize her as the Mother of God, but predict that a sword shall pierce her heart. And so I believe it's after 12 days, there's a period of ritual purification, right? You know, these ancient peoples were very phobic about the birth blood and menstrual blood and things like that.
Well, not ancient peoples, religious peoples. Let's be very clear about that.
Not Paleolithic people.
Not at all.
Early Neolithic people.
Not at all. Yeah. But that is the underpinning of this, is a religious ritual of purification that Mary has undergone and is now coming out of after the birth of her child, to bring the child into the greater community and present him to the greater community. It's why it's called the presentation.
The other side of it is that she gets a period of relative rest and stillness and quiet when she doesn't have a lot of visitors, where she's able to just be with her child and her family.
And that's a wonderful thing, when it doesn't have this kind of weird shame, purity, dirty thing imposed upon it. I mean, I know when my children were born, it was wonderful those first 2 weeks just to be cocooned with them, but she's coming out of that phase. You know, she's putting the baby in the stroller, and they're headed out into the world to meet everybody.
They're going to the temple to present the firstborn male child, to the Jewish people there. It's like a baptism, really. It's like a formal recognition and welcoming of Jesus to the community. But before they actually get into the temple,
and I think this is what's really interesting about this mystery. You always want to look at the details in a mystery, because there's not like a dream. There are no extraneous details.
Yeah,
they don't get to inside the temple.
No, the seers stop them on the steps, and they've been waiting.
An old man
for a long time, their whole lives.
Their names are Anna and Simeon, and it's an old woman and an old man, and they're psychics, seers.
They're seers. They are.
They're mystics, visionaries. I always call this the psychic's mystery.
They're able to see a reincarnate soul, a powerful soul, when they see one. They're able to recognize an avatar, a divinity, when they see one.
And they recognize Mary as the Mother of God.
Yeah.
They're not recognizing Jesus as God. They're recognizing Mary as the goddess, and it's really important distinction here.
Yeah, I think I would amend that slightly and say they are recognizing Jesus, but they're recognizing Jesus as Mary's child, right?
Yeah.
So it's a slight difference of emphasis. They speak to her, they prophesy to her.
They say, "We've waited for you.
Yeah.
We've waited for you and for this moment, and now we're having it. We're seeing you."
Yeah.
And And then, and this is really powerful, and it's why this mystery is both a joyous mystery in the rosary we pray, and in another mystery, it's a sorrowful mystery.
Yeah, the seven sorrows of Our Lady, which is another set of mysteries with its own rosary, the Seven Sorrows Rosary. The first sorrowful mystery is
This mystery.
this mystery.
So this mystery occupies, it's what I was saying about these fourth mysteries. If they're kind of like that little dot of white in the black, or the little dot of black in the white of the yin yang symbol.
Black and the white.
The fourth mysteries are, it's
There's
a joyous moment. Mary's going to the temple.
But there's a dark aspect of it, because Simeon says to her, he says, this child of yours is destined for the rise and fall of many in Israel. And there will be those who contradict him. There will be those who contend with him. Some people will be elevated, in the Magnificat, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, when Mary speaks to her cousin Elizabeth, and she gives this extemporaneous speech. She talks about the poor being lifted up and the mighty being brought down. And Simeon confirms that and says that's exactly what's going to happen as a result of over the course of your child's life.
But he also says to her, a sword shall pierce your heart. And I think a number of people may have seen an image of Mary. We have one actually just right behind us, if Clark wants to bring it over, that Will did, our Lytle, illustrator.
Yeah.
He said, a sword will pierce your heart. And there are images of Mary traditionally with a sword in her heart. Sometimes she has 7 swords in her heart, alluding to the 7 sorrows of Mary. And Clark, I think the painting, yes, he's getting another painting over. So we're going to bring over a couple paintings for you to look at. So sometimes Mary is depicted with 1 sword in her heart, and sometimes with 7 swords in her heart. And it comes from this moment. And it's very interesting. This is the traditional, I'm going to bring, there's a picture of Mary, Marta del Rosa, with a sword in her heart.
Yeah, it's traditional Mexican retablo, you can see.
There we go. It's the sword in her heart.
Mm.
This was a picture Will did of Mary with the 7 swords in her heart.
The 7 sorrows.
The 7 sorrows of Our Lady. You might have to bring it a little closer so it doesn't.
Well, it's reflecting on the glass, but I think you can see it. I can post an image of it later too, but you can see.
We'll post images.
This is Our Lady wrapped in an American flag with a serpent with arrows in his head, and Mary has 7 swords in her heart. Will did this for the Women's March on Washington a couple of years ago and gave us a copy.
And that's not minor that he did it for the Women's March, because this is a really interesting detail. Yes, it is the genesis of this image of Mary with the sword in her heart, this prediction of Simeon's. But there's an earlier goddess who has a sword in her heart.
Yeah.
And so this is looking forward to the sorrow that's coming to Mary. But the way psychics work, they work outside of time and space. Right. It's also remembering a much, much older sorrow of Mary's.
So this is one of those Da Vinci Code moments, right? These are the things that are hidden in the Rosary and hidden in this story. And there were still people during Our Lady's lifetime. There were still people during Simeon and Anna's lifetime who remembered these old stories or who had heard them. And one of the oldest epics of all is the Enuma Elish. And in that story, Tiamat, the sea goddess,
the great mother
goddess, is murdered by her grandson Marduk, who is a sky god. He wants to consolidate power and seize absolute power for himself over all of the gods. And so he summons up a great storm, and the storm, he blows it in her face, and her mouth opens, and he loosens an arrow that flies down her throat and pierces her heart.
And he puts that sword in the heart, comes from Marduk, and it is symbolic of the moment when the great mother goddess is killed by the sky god and replaced by the sky god.
And that's hidden right in plain view in the opening verses of Genesis, when if you go back and you read the Enuma Elish and the description of Marduk killing and then butchering Tiamat's body.
He cuts up her body to make a new world.
To make a new world. And he makes the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers out of her tears. He uses her pubic bone to support the sky.
And separate.
Her buttocks become the mountains.
It's very vivid and very
Yeah.
awful.
But the progression of images and the way God is described as creating the visible world in the opening verses of Genesis are match up exactly with this older story. They're really a retelling of it. In fact, the waters that Yahweh separates in the very beginning of Genesis, the word for them is, for the deep is tehom, and that word is derived from Tiamat's name.
So what
Sea
you're really
goddess.
listening in the very first chapter in the Bible, you are reading about the murder and mutilation of the mother goddess, Tiamat, whose name has been denied. It's all being abstracted, but it's a reference to that older story. So here comes Mary, and we're at the beginning of the New Testament.
Right.
And Simeon is evoking the Old Testament horror.
Yeah.
And saying it's about to be repeated.
It's about to happen all over again.
The whole terrible monstrosity.
The whole terrible tragedy of patriarchal madness is about to repeat itself. So this is the prophecy.
You're going to be written out of the story.
Yeah.
We're recognizing you as the mother goddess.
Yeah.
You're about to be written out of the story.
Yeah.
Just the way Tiamat was.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that's really powerful for me, I have to share this because for me, this is an intensely personal mystery. And I want to share why, because some people may know that one of the books I wrote earlier before Way of the Rose was I co-wrote a book called The Reluctant Psychic. And I ended up writing that book. I had never been to a psychic. Some people like to go to psychics. They go to tarot readers. They get their charts done. I was not that person. My father was a doctor. I didn't want to go near that stuff. I think I was very nervous about it. But when Sophie was really, really sick, we had a friend who said, you've got to go find this woman. She's a genius psychic. She doesn't advertise. It's hard to get an appointment with her. You drop by.
More than a psychic, she was like Anna and Simeon. She's an oracle.
She's an oracle.
Yeah.
She was like an ancient oracle, and I walked in to see her, and I did not know how peculiar it was that I did get an appointment with her. She said, "Come right back. I want to talk to you." Sure, which she doesn't do. And she sat me down, and the first thing she said to me, and I didn't understand it, she said, "Oh, there's a woman beside you, and she's got a sword in her heart." I had no idea what she was talking about. And then a second later, she introduced my parents, and she introduced all these dead people I knew, and started explicating my life in a lot of ways.
And made startling revelations.
Revelations.
That made you scream.
I screamed. My parents came so vividly into the room. She knew their names, what they looked like. They were talking to me in their own voices with their own language. And it was sort of upside down to my reality that I screamed. And it took me, I came home to Clark. I said, "Oh, I've had this extraordinary encounter." This was 2 weeks before Our Lady appeared.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of preparation for me. I've often felt a piercing of the veil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the psychics, that psychic power, that ability to pierce the veil is something very, very powerful going on in this fourth mystery, because these psychics outside of the temple, outside of the institutional religion,
they represent a sort of a liminal area between institutional religion and folk religion. They have a kind of a borderline institutional role there, like they are connected to the temple, but they are not authorities as such.
And they give this information
very powerful
that goes backwards and forwards. They see the past, they see the future. The whole thing opens up there on the steps.
It says, and Mary held these things in her heart. Like she takes these in. This is vital information to her. Maybe you want to think of it as corroboration or encouragement or just guidance. I mean, they're actually giving her.
But one of the things that's very interesting is how many psychics actually pray the rosary.
Yeah.
Lots. I've met so many psychics since I wrote this book, and they all pray the rosary.
Yeah.
But they pray the rosary because it opens up that space where we can look backwards and forward.
Portal. Yeah.
And they say it really starts to open the imaginal realms, the realms of the dead, the realms of what you can see. You can look around, see things you hadn't seen before. And so that's what Anna and Simeon are doing here. They're, in some ways, that sword that's going into Mary's heart is opening up everything in us. It's opening up our hearts, but it's also saying that things are not hard, painful things are going to happen.
There's a very little discussed aspect of that verse where it says, and a sword shall also pierce your heart, that the thoughts of many shall be known. And, I've read a lot of different interpretations of that. A lot of times the theologians will apply that second part of the verse to the earlier statement about Jesus. So it's about Jesus. But if you go back and you read it very carefully, it seems to be about Mary. And it seems to be that this sword in her heart has a dual role. It's painful. It's an attack, right? It's the classic attack against the mother goddess. But there is also a way in which, with that sword in her heart, that she becomes a figure of profound empathy for people.
Yeah.
People feel that they can go to her. And there are, I think in our group, there are a lot of people with devotion to the sorrowful mother. People who've experienced tremendous sorrow, people who feel that they need a lady to go to who will understand, who've seen it all, and who won't turn away from their sorrow, right? And their
sometimes
grief.
Feel, sometimes in spiritual communities that we have to get beyond our sorrow. We have to move out of it. We have to ignore it. We have to metabolize it. We have to change it. And the Rosary says it's coming for you.
Yeah.
And you're going to go inside of it and go deep into it.
Yeah, and a lot is made, of course, of the wounds of Christ, and the blood of Christ, to as salvic, as purifying, saving, redeeming people, saving souls. In the medieval Catholic tradition, certainly, and still in some parts of the Catholic tradition today, people will talk about Mary's wound in her heart is also redemptive, but it's redemptive in a different way. It's not the blood of sacrifice. It's the wounded heart that can feel the wounds of other people's hearts and knows how to heal them.
Yeah. She knows.
Yeah.
There's nothing she doesn't know. There's no pain and sorrow. And yes, somebody says this reminds me of the scars on Our Lady of Czestochowa's face.
Oh, yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
And if anyone, we'll go back and post some of these photos in the talk. But Our Lady of Czestochowa, when you look at her face, the bottomless sorrow of it.
She's an interesting figure because she holds the child to Jesus, but her face is not that of the usual Mary holding Jesus. Sometimes the Black Madonnas will seem austere or very serious. Sometimes they're very joyful looking, but they rarely look as completely devastatedly sorrowful as Our Lady of Czestochowa. Her face is a deeply sorrowful face. So she's holding this child, and already it's almost as if Our Lady of Czestochowa is the Mary who's just received the news from Simeon.
Yeah.
Right? She's just heard this.
But it's such an interesting moment about joy, and it's an interesting teaching about joy, because claiming our joy does not make us immune to sorrow. In fact, it makes us ready to step into it.
I like what you said about the black dot at the heart of the white side of the yin yang symbol, because it really is that. This is a moment of real, a piercing into the sorrowful mysteries already in the joyful mysteries. So it's not like there's not a monolithic quality to the three sets of mysteries. It's not like the joyful mysteries are completely unalloyed and purely joyful, right? There are aspects of each one of them that
complicated.
They're complicated. They're subtle. They can embrace a lot of different feelings. And even the sorrowful mysteries there are moments of light in those, right, as well.
In the fourth mystery. It's always the fourth mystery.
Yeah.
But I want to think also about this moment for Mary of being recognized for who she is. I was on a phone meeting and Zoe O'Toole was leading the rosary. And that's what she said. She said, This mystery for me is about having manifested your joy and being recognized for who you really are.
Yeah.
And that feeling of being known. And we've all had people like that in our lives who see us, who know us, who recognize us. And Mary is at this moment, she's not just a girl from
It's
Nazareth.
It's interesting because she's recognized and her identity is affirmed in in the first four.
That's interesting. I've never thought about that.
And I just realized it just this
never
moment,
had.
just listening to what you were saying, because she, at the Annunciation, she's recognized as the Great Mother by the angel Gabriel, who comes to her specifically, "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee," recognizes her as the partner in the Hieros Gamos. In the next mystery, in the Visitation, Mary arrives, and at the sound of her voice, the baby John the Baptist inside of Elizabeth's womb leaps, and Elizabeth says, "Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb," to her. So recognizes her. She's recognized by the wise men and by the shepherds, right, at the Nativity, at the Adoration. And then here she's recognized by the seers. Only when she goes to the temple to retrieve the recalcitrant Jesus, who has run off for a few days, is hanging out with the rabbis. She goes to the temple, and no one there knows her. No one knows who she is.
When we bring forth our joy from within us, when we start to manifest that joy, it doesn't mean things aren't going to get difficult and complicated. But it does mean we become who we are. Yeah. There's this incredibly beautiful poem, that's a prayer actually, that I memorized recently, to the infant of Atoka. The infant, that's for another day, but he's a wonderful, interesting saint, a folk saint that we go to Chimayo to for his chapel.
He's technically Jesus, only not.
He's the child of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
No, Our Lady of Atoka. But he's always paired with Guadalupe. Anyway, so he seems to be her child.
It's wonky. It gets really wonky. But there's this beautiful prayer to him, and it says, it ends with, "Help me become," you pray to him, "who I already am."
Yeah.
Help me become who I already am. And that's the work of the joyful mysteries.
Yeah.
Help me become who I already am.
That. That's really true. I never really thought of it that way, but it really is.
I mean, it's what we're praying for. Help me be the lover, the friend, the mother, the body, the being, the artist, the nurse, doctor, healer, whatever I am meant to be. And when we are, we're recognized for who we are.
Yeah.
We can bring forth that from within us.
So this really sets up beautifully the mystery we'll be talking about next week, which is the finding at the temple, because that really is a kind of a hinge, because from there we go to the joyful mystery, the sorrowful
mystery. But I just want to reinforce there's a wonderful discussion on Way of the Rose. I mean, people were talking about what they do with the mysteries, and it was really beautiful. And one of the 10 million things on my list to do is to go back and copy that conversation, because it was so fantastic. But one of the people said is that when you really know the Hail Mary prayers, they become a kind of murmur background. And then you kind of drop into the mystery in your imagination, in your intuition, and you kind of see what comes up with the mystery. There have times, it has having a conversation with you.
So one person, I can't remember who it was, a few years ago, talked about the sitar and about how similar it was to the rosary, that you have the Hail Marys, and really all the prayers, especially the Hail Mary, since they're the mantra of the rosary, set up these drones, right, that are underneath the melody. And the mysteries then are like the melody that plays on top of that drone, right? The drone is the main thing that's, you're settled down in that deep, deep spiritual place. And then it's like, I don't know, sometimes I think of the mysteries as a shallow waking dream. Like I'll be praying the rosary and I'll enter into a shallow dream. By shallow, of course, I don't mean not deep, but I mean that you're right there between consciousness and sleep, where a lot of interesting things can happen. Your imagination can work. You can receive intimations from below, and from above, your conscious mind can even interact with that, with what you're being shown.
And these two characters, I'm so fascinated
Mhm.
by the characters of Anna and Simeon.
That's also the psychic space.
It's the psychic. There are these psychics.
Yeah.
And, the church will go to war with people who are psychics. It
Yeah.
will burn them. It will destroy them. And here they are.
Yeah.
Here they are inside of the mystery. It's challenging. They're outside the temple.
And they're the only ones who can warn her. They're the only ones who can recognize her for who she is. And as I said, later the rabbis don't see her for who she is. So these two psychics, they can see her for who she is, but they also have a warning for her.
And we also have to know, in what ways do we have to recognize other people?
Yeah.
Who do we need to recognize? Who are the young women
and
support and know?
And also guide and, occasionally warn.
Because we're not just Mary as we travel through the mysteries. As people have said, as Jung suggests, and if we treat the mysteries like dream work, we're all the characters. Right. We are Anna, we're Simeon, we're Mary, we're even the little baby being carried up on the...
At any given moment in time, usually we don't try to be, all things we don't try to be all people every time we pray the rosary, but you find as you pray the mysteries, you find yourself naturally being drawn to like a detail or to a character in the mysteries, and you find yourself, getting curious. I think sometimes I experience curiosity. Sometimes they'll come to you. Like sometimes they got something to tell you. A character will step forward, out of a dream space and with a message for you.
Yeah, and you can ask questions of them. These are not, like I always say, and I feel like I always have to repeat this. These aren't telling you what to think or what to believe.
No.
They're opening up the possibilities for faith within you. They're mysteries. Clark once described them as bottomless wells. You can go to that well every time and drink from it, and it's never going to run dry.
Yeah, it's not. The mysteries of the rosary are inexhaustible wells of meaning. They are not a top-down theological delivery system, which is what the church has long tried to make of them.
I mean,
church is always trying to do this. Most books you'll see on the rosary are just, here are the 15 mysteries. Here's what you should know. Here's what they mean.
You should believe this.
That's right.
And that's not what they are. That's not what a mystery religion is. A mystery is an initiation into the mysterious aspects of life. It is mysterious how at a moment of our greatest joy is also the seed of our great sorrow. All of it's happening at once.
And basically the mysteries, every mystery tradition, including the rosary, is an initiation into the long story of our souls, right? We come out of these traditions knowing that our lives are very, very, very long, and that we live many, many times. We've lived many times. We're alive now. We will live many other times.
And in a very simple place, in an absolutely prosaic, mundane level, I have two children. I know the first moment I held them, I began to realize, these children are going to die. I'm going to die. And it's also what you realize if you have a partner you love. The painful thing about love is that it's always going to be a series of comings and goings. And that is the truth of love. It's eternal and it involves comings and goings.
Yes.
Both are true. And that's the great pain of the joy, right?
Yeah.
There are people who don't risk love because they don't want to risk that pain.
Yeah, I think she's, he doesn't, Simeon doesn't, actually predict Jesus's death. He alludes to it. He suggests it might happen. But certainly you can feel that. You can feel it so deeply.
And oh my God, this child is going to break my heart. Yeah. And we have also broken our parents' hearts. But believe me, I qualify. I'm so sorry. And so it's a very on the one hand, this is a very deep, awe-inspiring mystery. And on the other, it's a mystery that happens every day for every new mother in the world.
Yeah, it's baptism, and it really is. It's a very relatable moment.
It is. It's just simple and profound, and that's what all the mysteries are. And it is centered on Mary. It's centered on the mama being recognized as the mama.
So I think we're coming up 30 minutes. I think we vowed to start on time and end on time. So
we'll keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
We'll throw up some pictures. You throw up some pictures. And, Clark and I are sort of slowly trying to feel our way into helping people. A lot of people want to create new mysteries, which is great. But these ones were derived from really old 1,000-year-old mystery traditions. And they bring with them the sediment of the Isis mysteries, the Eleusinian mysteries.
There are lots and lots of secrets that have been deliberately hidden in these mysteries by our ancestors.
They're not
they're not random.
They're not random, and there's a lot there.
The artists have hid things in them. The folk tales have, the tale tellers have hidden things in them. Even scripture has hidden things in them.
Yeah. So have fun, play with them. Shit happens when you're playing with them, and do join the Novena group if you want to follow a mystery every day.
Right.
In the Novena group, all that happens is one daily post on a mystery every day, easy to find.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.